Hi guys, Board now back with you, and on this video I return to Killing Eve Season 3. This is the 4th episode and it is called Still Got It. So we're halfway through the series now, of this season anyway. And this episode is a bit different because it actually jumps about the characters. So we get like a different section for each character. In fact, for 2 characters at least, we get 2 sections. Because when it starts, we actually start with Nico, who's, as it turns out, has moved to Poland. So we find out in this episode he obviously discharged himself from hospital, which Eve found out last episode. And we also hear from Eve in this episode that he was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, which is why he was initially put into hospital. But having discharged himself, he has moved to Poland to start a new life, or at least to get away for the time being. He's working on a farm, he's got a job. We see him early on in the episode in this bar, so we see him starting to build a new life for himself. He just wanted to escape the trauma of what happened to him at the end of the last series. And at the same time, Eve's trying to contact him by phone. He's still being quite standoffish, still doesn't want to face that, although he actually does give in and kind of reacts a little bit to a text, at least opens up a dialogue. But yeah, I did wonder why we were starting this episode in Poland with Nico, and then it gradually jumps about. But in a similar way to what we saw in the last episode, where you have that sort of puzzle slowly unfolding, where they kept us guessing what Villeneuve's intention was, why she was in London, and then you had the reveal when she killed the accountant. And this sort of does a similar thing because it actually throws you off with the opening scene, because we see Nico get like a text from Eve, and he responds to it, or appears to, and that is kind of later subverted in the episode. But as I said, he's in Poland, he's on this farm, he seems to have settled in quite well, knows the locals. But then what happens later on in the episode, I'll talk about what Villeneuve's doing a bit later, but when we go to Dasha and her part of the story, she is actually visited by one of her superiors, or she's like called in, and it's this like officer who we haven't seen before. And she basically puts her on warning. She says, "You're losing control of Villeneuve. She's obviously pursuing Eve again. She's getting all distracted," which we see more of in this episode. But the warning is very clear from Dasha's superior. It's that basically you have to get her back on track, you have to focus her mind again, otherwise you're getting shipped back to Russia. And this really terrifies Dasha. You can see the response. It's well sold by the actress. So this sets in motion her plan, and she finds out, I think she finds out from Kirsten during one of their conversations. I might be remembering that wrong, but I think he or did he tell Villeneuve? I can't quite remember, because they have more dialogue in this episode. But Anyway, Dasha finds out and she heads to Poland, and that's kind of the twist, because at one point we see him on the farm and he goes past this old woman, and this is another clever little twist in the tale, because we actually saw her earlier in the episode, this really old woman on the farm, looks all innocent, but as it turns out, that's Dasha actually dressed as an old woman, and she's actually killed like the farm owner, so to like fool Nico. And as it turns out, she sent the text to Eve from Nico's phone, so that's another part of the trick. So obviously Eve, getting this message, is all excited. She thinks that Nico might give her another chance. She rushes to Poland, and it all comes down to this scene on the farm, where just as Eve is driving in, and Dasha leaves it right till Eve like goes up and she shouts to Nico, and they see each other. And then out of nowhere, from behind, she kills off Nico. She like stabs him from behind. It's a swift thing, because not only does she kill him really quickly, but she must be super. I have to say, she must be lightning quick making her escape, because the next thing you know, she is out of shot and she's like leaving the area. But it's another one of these big dramatic like surprise scenes which we've had a lot in this season. I think they've done these moments really well, where they've really set you up to think something and then they've done something completely different. And the big deaths have really landed, like the one with Kenny in the first episode. And now we see Nico, who's obviously one of these like supporting characters. We associate him. We kind of care about him because we care about Eve, but his death is obviously now going to raise the stake. So it was like a smart little like plan from Dasha. I have to wonder actually why she didn't try and kill Eve. You might have thought that could have been the plan, like to draw Eve to the farm and then to kill her. My guess is then the plan was obviously Eve sees Nico being killed, and then that means she obviously is distraught and she's going to be distracted, and yeah, her mind won't be on being in London and becoming a target for Villeneuve. But Villeneuve does know, I'm pretty sure, then Eve has gone to Poland. So that's going to be a thing. I think Villeneuve is going to show up in Poland at some point, probably in the next episode. But that's all really good stuff. The whole like swerve there. Now, as far as Eve goes and her storyline in London, it's her birthday, which is kind of like important because she starts getting like gifts from Villeneuve, I should say, and she's been sleeping at the office, at like the newspaper office, which they don't know. She's been doing it in secret, and I think Sandra Oh is so great in this episode. She's always great, but one of the things I enjoyed about her in this episode is she really presents like this like picture of someone who's like just downtrodden, down on her luck, just really living roughly almost. The way I think she physically sells it with her clothing and just her body language. Like when she's in the office talking to like the guy who's like working with her, it's just such great physical acting, and I can imagine Sandra Oh just had so much fun doing it. But we slowly get somewhere with the case, with them investigating, trying to figure out what happened to Kenny. So they're obviously starting to look further into like the history behind the killing and behind this group of Russian assassins. And they finally find this image and this story of like this sporting injury which led to like a death, and it's in Russia from like many decades ago, but it's a similar pattern, a similar style of death to the one to how Kenny was killed. So they see a connection, and Eve basically says, well, if you can trace this killer, then you can probably get to like the syndicate. And like the newspaper guy says, but this was decades ago. But obviously Eve is convinced there's a connection. And I do actually like the line from, I forget the character's name, but at the newspaper where he basically says he was like the Russian Lee Poehler and Jonathan Woodgate, which is actually a really dark joke when you know football fans all know exactly what that joke is. It's really dark actually, but it's very clever joke. But yeah, we get all this stuff with Eve's birthday and Vilna sending her gifts like a cake, and again some great physical visual stuff with Sandro just reacting to all this. So she's like gets all emotional over it, whereas in the office they don't know why, so they're like all trying to celebrate her birthday, and she like goes outside on the roof and like literally throws the cake off because she literally doesn't want anything to do with it. But the boss of the office, Phil, who she's not had like the best relationship so far with Eve, he actually like when he finds out she's been like sleeping rough in the office, he's like, well, why don't you come and stay with me for a while, just till you get settled? So she goes home with him, and there's quite a cute little scene where he slowly gets her to open up, and he makes it clear because she's just feeling just awful about her like life and about kind of how low she is sort of stooped. And he's actually there for her. He actually speaks to her on her level, and he just makes some sort of like line. It's something like never assume you are the only self-loathing son of a bitch, or something like that, something to that effect. So it's a really great line, and they open up. It's a strong scene. So I think that's kind of Eve's storyline in this episode. So they're getting a bit closer to getting to the reveal of the case and getting to the truth behind Kenny's death. We get a bit more with Kirsten. Is it Kenstein? I shouldn't do this on air, but with him, he actually goes to visit his daughter in Moscow, and he's there actually to talk about like the wife or the widow of the accountant who was killed last week. We get a good little scene with him and his daughter, who he doesn't see very, very often because of him traveling the world and his job. And you can tell they have a really like awkward relationship. And he takes this chance to visit her at school and just try and have a bit of a bonding session. And she's really not having any of it. She's pissed because she's like figured out that he's there on business and he's not really interested. It's like just this small little gesture, but it's ultimately not what she wants. So that doesn't go very well, but he visited like the ex-wife of the accountant and tries to find out what happened in the days leading up to his death, and he finds out some information. He finds out that her husband Charles, like his real name, he got like an email with an attachment from like a mysterious source. And so what happens is she like sends that attachment on to Kirsten. Yeah. So, but then he obviously, even though he's like close to the accountant's wife and is like there for her, he obviously decides then she needs to go because she has this information, and just in case, I guess it's like a loose end in case like someone from like the British authorities gets hold of her and like gets information out. So that becomes a thing where he gets Vilna to go and kill her basically in Russia. So that's kind of what she does, because what happens is, as you remember from the last episode, Vilna says to him, then I want to learn out my roots. I want to find my family. So this is quite a nice little character beat, wanting to know more about her past. So in this episode, Kirsten makes this deal with Vilna. He says, if you do this job for me, and then I'll give you, I've found your family, I can give you the information, and you can go and find them. Actually, that's how it ends. I was forgetting, because it ends with Vilna. She's on the train, and she arrives and she's home. The caption says home. So, in return for killing off the accountant's wife, she gets that. So that's going to be very interesting. I'm expecting some meaty stuff the next episode with Villeneuve, like rediscovering her roots. But yeah, there's sort of like this comedic death scene with her and the wife, who's a bit of a stress freak, and she has this problem with like screaming. She has this weird sort of thing. So they're playing this game where like Vilna tries to scare like the because she's got like hiccups, so trying to scare the hiccups out, and it just becomes this playful sort of game where they chase each other, and obviously she doesn't know Villeneuve is there to kill her, and eventually it just leads to her being choked. So that's that. There's a scene with Dasha and Villeneuve where Dasha tries to question her about what happens in London, or what happened in London last week, and I think this is where the concerns about what exactly she's up to, like is her head in the mission sort of thing, is she starting to stray? And I like the Jack the Ripper reference from Dasha, actually. Or is it Vilna? Yeah, I think it's Vilna, because she jokes about like going to Jack the Ripper or something. But yeah, it's interesting because Dasha says Vilna's been given like these new credentials. She's been given extra money and freedom to travel, which is an interesting strategy considering that they're trying to like refocus her. But I guess, yeah, she's just earned this sort of like thing, and I guess maybe it's part of their like strategy to kind of keep her happy, and maybe not have her sort of go off and become dissatisfied. But I think that's mostly the episode, but that there is like a bit with Caroline. Yeah, still being. Yeah, there's a bit in her house with her daughter, basically, who she's still being cold and cut off with. And the daughter just breaks down because her mother doesn't open up, and she actually breaks down and pleads with her, and Caroline, because her daughter sort of claims, well, you don't seem to care at all. And Caroline has, if you only knew what I'm doing for Kenny. And she goes upstairs, and it's like this moment where Caroline actually breaks down and lets out a bit of emotion, but she obviously does it in her bed or in another room, ahead of her daughter doesn't see. But yeah, I think at this stage the daughter feels like a bit of an add-on character. There's maybe not a lot of reason to have her around. That just feels like an extra bit of drama, which you thought maybe they could have sorted last week. But who knows? They might do something with the daughter a bit more. I do like the actress at least. So there you have it. That's Killing Eve season 3, episode 4, and halfway through the season now. I'm pretty satisfied. I think one thing I like is the way they are opening up and exploring other characters a bit more, rather than it just being the focus mainly on the two. And there's been some like quite cool little surprises. So halfway through this series, I think I'm pretty satisfied. I think it's probably on course at least to be the second best series, I think, after the original, certainly. But it's still a very entertaining show, even if it hasn't quite reached the heights than it did originally. So that's episode 4, and I will be back very soon with episode 5. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you want the content to keep coming, and ding the bell on YouTube for any new notifications of videos that are going up, and look out for more TV reviews coming soon, and I'll see you guys again soon. Goodbye.